From Field Pass Hockey Southern Command, this is the Inside the SPHL podcast. Here is your host, James Hayes.
Welcome to this week's episode of Inside the SPHL. After last week, it just happened to deal with me. I decided I'd do you guys all a favor and I'd bring on two separate guests this week. I got a treat for you. I'm going to have, it's going to be two Roanoke people. It's going to be Mitch Stewart, the broadcaster. He's going to come on, talk about everything around the league with me. And then a little bit later on, I'm going to bring on Travis Armstrong, the grizzled old veteran from the Rail Yard Dawgs, the captain, who's probably got plenty of stories that he's going to want to share with us. It ought to be great. But first, let's get to it. Let's bring Mitch on here and talk to him. Mitch, how you doing, man? How's things going there in Roanoke?
I'm doing great, James. I appreciate you having me on, and definitely very happy to be joined a little later on by the original dog, Travis Armstrong.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of records and, like you said, a lot of time played. So hopefully we can get you up to speed on what's happening in the Star City.
Yeah, definitely. I always like to get guys that have been in the league for a while. They always got the most experience. You know, this league's full of younger guys and guys that haven't been playing pro hockey for a long time, and they got good stories. But these older guys that have been in it, I mean, you know, they love the game if they're playing into their 30s in the SPHL, and so it's always nice to get guys like that. But it's also always nice to get a guy like yourself on here that, you know, you've traveled around with the league, watched a lot of games. You know, do a great job covering, doing play-by-play for the Rail Yard Dawgs, and I'd love to get your opinion on everything in the league, not just the Rail Yard Dawgs. And we're not going to talk about the Penn State shirt you're wearing, though.
Come on, you're not rocking with the Nittany Lions, James?
Yeah, no. Well, see, I'm a Colorado kid, so I'm a DU person when it comes to hockey, and I don't even talk about football. So
okay, there we go.
Frozen Four coming up this week. It'll be what? Let's see, the day after the podcast drops, the Frozen Four. So they got Michigan. That's going to be a tough task for them, but who knows?
Yeah, a lot of talent. That to me kind of feels like it's more of the national championship. Whoever comes out of that game, I think, will go on and probably win it all. So
yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, even though Minnesota did get the best DU in the NCHC tournament, I think maybe DU just kind of took it off. That's what I'm going with. I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt.
There you go.
But let's talk a little SPHL. I want to start off with Birmingham Macon weekend. So both those teams played a game on Thursday night. Macon played Pensacola. Birmingham played Evansville, and Birmingham took care of business against Evansville at home. Macon struggled against Pensacola, and then Macon again struggled all weekend. Macon has had the better of the Bulls all season long. I mean, I think it was 5 of their 9 wins came against the Bulls, so I wasn't expecting, you know, the Bulls to get both games. I don't know what it is about that matchup, but the Bulls came out. You know, they took care of business 6-1 on Friday. They chased Stilitis. I can never get his name right. That's you know, they chased him and then brought Hussey in, who actually news today breaking on Monday was Hussey was waived by Macon. And then they got him 4-3 in overtime with Mike Davis. You know, he didn't want to. I think he wanted to get on the bus and go home. 8 seconds into overtime, Davis just buried that thing. And I was sitting down ready for the long haul, thinking maybe shootout, because the Bulls seem to go to a lot of those this year. They did it against Roanoke early on in the year, but no, the Bulls took that off. They've won 3 in a row. I might get smacked around next time I'm at the Pelham Civic Complex, but I don't think they've won 3 all season in a row like that. I don't feel like they have. And if you know, you can correct me, but I think this is the first time they've strung it together. Too little, too late, but it's all good. You know, these younger kids are out there to play well. Macon's lost 4 in a row. They might break Huntsville's record of only 11 wins. They're sitting at 9 right now. They got 3 games remaining. They're all against Pensacola. I mean, give me your take on Macon this season and where you feel that team's at coming down the stretch, and if you think they're going to break that record along with the Vermillion County Bobcats.
Well, yeah, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. I was like, you know, any other year they'd maybe be stressing that a little bit more, but fortunately they've got the Bobcats kind of bringing up the rear behind them and maybe kind of nerfing a bit of that blow from what's been a tough season for them, kind of as you talked about. And, they came to Roanoke a couple weeks back, and they were actually kind of picking it up a little bit. They played Fayetteville really tough, took some points off of them, beat them at least once in like a 2-week time frame, and had a couple other post-regulation games. But I think for Macon all year, what's been a little bit tough for them is they were one of the teams that played last year, and every team that played last year in the SB, it seemed like they kind of had to make a choice, and that's, how many of your, current existing roster from that 1920 season prior are you going to roll with and bring back? And then as the domino effect kind of happened with a lot of teams and, the ECHL, AHL teams weren't able to play and field teams. And that kind of, bumped everyone down into the SPHL, and some SPHL guys playing in the Fed as well. And with Macon, I think they kind of took that route where they were like, we can get some guys that have typically played in the ECHL and maybe make a run at the cup. And it almost worked out for them. Them and Pensacola both kind of followed that same path. Pensacola has bounced back a bit better this season than Macon has, of course. But, I think Caleb Cameron's just about the only name that you would see from 2020, 2021 into this season. So you're putting a lot of new pieces in to the fold, and they played fine against Roanoke in that sweep by the Dogs 2 weekends ago. 2 pretty solid periods by Stiliadis the first night, Hussey the second, where goaltending was keeping them in the game even though they were getting outplayed. And then third period rolls around, and the lid just kind of pops off the cookie jar, and Roanoke starts putting them in at an alarming rate. And it'll be interesting to see kind of what they can do with some of their veteran guys that are coming back that they've added in this year, along with Caleb Cameron, and, maybe kind of how hard they can hit the recruiting trail over the offseason, and maybe see if they can bring in a new good blend of rookie talent.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And then they're another one of those teams that they lost their really number one goalie, and he was up playing in Henderson all the way up in the AHL in Dylan Kelly. So it's great to see that happen. But whenever you're like, if you're a Mayhem fan and you're ignoring all this outside noise of the other leagues, it kind of sucks to see that your goalie you were watching early on in the year, he's gone, but it's you can't feel that way. This is a developmental league, and that's what I try to tell people when I talk to them is, I mean, that's what happens every once in a while, and you want to see these guys move up. None of them want to make a career out of this level. Not to say that there's anything against it, but the ultimate goal is always to try to play the next level, no matter where you're at. But so tell me talk to me a little bit about Birmingham. I know Birmingham's had success against Roanoke, one of the few teams Birmingham's had success against this year. And they were actually it was looking like maybe they were going to catch the Dogs in the playoff race. And then Roanoke decided to turn things up, and the Bulls, inconsistency is what I say has been going on, but they're looking good lately. I mean, how do you feel about that team's overall performance here lately and even throughout the year?
Yeah, I think inconsistent is a pretty good description for them, unless they're playing Roanoke, which they're 3-0 in their 3 meetings against them. The thing I've liked to watch about them all year is Carson Rose and Mike Davis. Those two are really talented players in this league. I think some of the depth scoring let them down at points throughout the year. And at the same time, too, they're getting Knoxville and Huntsville and Pensacola a good bit. That's something that a lot of Roanoke fans have talked about with our own strength of schedule for the Rail Yard Dawgs throughout the year. That's 3 really solid teams that you guys go up against more than just about anyone. And then in addition to Macon, who you kind of touched on before we hopped on here, Macon's done enough to steal a couple games off Birmingham that when you look back at this point in the year, maybe you wish that you could have, had things go a little bit differently in those kind of must-win games against a team that you have more talent than. But, I think Birmingham, what I've really been impressed with in these last couple of weeks is even when Roanoke started to pick up some wins and clinch the President's Cup playoff spot against Huntsville a couple weekends back, Birmingham's still performing at a really high level. They took Knoxville to it 2 nights in a row, and then they had Macon this past weekend and took care of business against them as well. So I think that they're doing the right things as far as kind of trying to build forward in the right direction. I enjoyed going down there. I went to the last game that they played on March 10th It wasn't the most fun game from a Rail Yard Dawgs perspective. It was power play goals galore from the Bulls that evening, but that was actually kind of a turning point for Roanoke in this season, was the way that game started out and kind of got away from them. I think they went into that trip with a lot of confidence, and Birmingham knew that that was a must-win game with Roanoke because they were trying to catch them, and they took care of business in that game. One other thing I kind of wanted to touch on with Birmingham that I just was a really cool moment, even if it kind of came at the expense of a Roanoke loss, was the second game they played this season back at the end of January, the Chris Easter night that they did. Mike Davis had the personalized jersey, and Roanoke was doing what they needed to do. Looked like they were finally kind of going to get over that hurdle that is, the Pelham Civic Complex to them this season. And they tied the game late, and then Mike Davis had a pretty emotional game-winning goal. So even though Roanoke didn't come out on top, that was probably one of the cooler moments that I think has happened throughout the SPHL this year. I wasn't there in the building, but in talking to Eli Gold and a couple of the Birmingham staff, I think that it really meant a lot to have the Easter family there, them honoring him for that night, and Mike Davis, who else but the man that's wearing Easter's name on the back of his jersey. That was just a really cool thing to see. So we'll see kind of what they can do here in this last weekend, and if they can kind of keep things retooling like they have at the end of this season, and maybe start off at the beginning of next year, kind of picking up where they left off.
Yeah. It was electric that night. That was first responders night, and then they honored Christopher Easter. It was electric that night. And when Davis scored that goal, the roof blew off that building. That's one of those moments that I am actually really, really happy I was able to be there and experience it live, because stuff like that, those are the things people talk about for years. So that you're right, that was great. I mean, it was cool, and kind of carried on to this heading up to this weekend. I mean, they got the role. They can play spoiler for Huntsville. They could possibly make it to where Huntsville plays fourth. If the cards fall right, the team that's been number one all year can end up finishing the regular season in fourth, which I don't know if that really matters. I mean, the way things are right now, I mean, does one really want to play 8? Does 2 really want to play 7? I mean, I don't think I'd want to play the Rail Yard Dawgs right now, or Evansville, or I mean, it's just, but they can play that role, and I know that the Bulls would love to do that in-state rival. They take care of it, kind of knock them down a peg if they could, but we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. I feel like Huntsville's lost too many games in a row, and we'll talk about them here in a minute, but I don't know that Birmingham will be able to sweep them, but you never know. But let's
Oh, pardon me. I was just going to say, I throw on like a little bit of a lag, so I kind of messed that up. But you were talking about, just you throw the seedings out the window. A lot of it's really just matchup based. Like Huntsville falling out the 4, you would have never thought that would really matter when they were the 1 seed 2 or 3 weekends ago. But now them drawing Pensacola versus drawing a Quad City, the styles of those two teams, we'll talk a little bit more about it, but it can really kind of move the needle between some of these teams, how this last weekend is going to finish up. And I think it's a great way to end the regular season. There's still so much to play for 1 through 8.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's going to be a fun final weekend. Usually final weekends are kind of boring, but this one's going to be fun. There's a lot still left to be had. So we'll leave that conversation and move into a conversation about a team that doesn't really have much left to play for but pride. We'll talk about Vermillion County. So they played Quad City and Peoria for the 700th time this season, and they lost 3-0 to Quad City, and they lost 10-3 to Peoria. And I mean, that was just brutal. One thing I do want to bring up is this team. They've done some pretty cool things that I think a lot of people don't know about throughout the season. They had a ALS night on against Quad City, and being the dirt track racing junkie that I am, I was pretty excited to see that Bobby Pierce's dirt late model was sitting outside there, and he was a part of it. I mean, the team knows how to promote their team and get other things involved. I mean, they got a sponsor on a race car now and stuff. So it's not all bad. And as they're coming down the stretch, I mean, as long as they're keeping their fan base, engaged, they're going to come back. You can't have a season like this twice in a row. They're brand new, growing pains. That's my opinion on it. They definitely will break the record. They will have the record for the most losses in a season. Is it going to be, what is it, 5 they're at now? And, or is it going to be 7 if they can get a win? And they got Peoria and Quad City again this weekend. So for the 102nd time each. So kind of tell me your feelings about the Bobcats this year.
Yeah, so we had them in Roanoke back in the middle of November. It's the only matchup between the two teams this season. It was a 2-game series, and it was actually came at a great time for the Dogs. It was our first win and second win of the year when we kind of rolled out the gate a little bit slow at 0-2-4. I think my biggest takeaway was Vermillion County this year, and I've only watched them a couple more times, just trying to chime in at the end of some close games once ours are wrapped up or on an off night for us, then I just throw it on at the house. Is, they've got a long history of hockey in Danville, and that first year as an expansion team in a new league, it's not going to be, easy sledding, whether you hit the ground running with 15 wins or 5 wins. It's pretty tough to come in and have success right off the bat, or even, get into the playoff conversation. For any Vermillion County fans that are listening, I would just say, I know you're probably frustrated. It's not fun to lose that many games, but just stay behind them. It's the first year. I think that, the franchise has done a good job of kind of figuring out pretty early on in the year that it might be difficult to be competitive off the bat, at least on a consistent basis. And what they've done that I think is maybe going to set them apart, or apart, I should say, from a recruiting perspective into next year is, they've really been pushing guys that if they want to take the leap and take a call up to the ECHL, they're making that happen. They've had the most throughout the SPHL by far since the beginning of the season. And so I think once you can maybe get a couple of those guys back from call-ups and they decide to come back to Vermillion County and just get another offseason to recruit, get some eyes out there, get some new bodies in. Once you can kind of start to develop that core in year 2 and maybe into year 3, I think that's when a lot of teams in this league start to have a little bit of success. You've seen it with Roanoke. It took them a couple of years to really start making some noise and being competitive with, some of the more storied franchises in the league, like a Huntsville or a Peoria or a Knoxville. And then also at the same time, Quad City now, they've been sitting in the top 4 or 5 in the standings all season long. And, this is only, I think, their 3rd season in the SPHL. So, yeah, it's not going to happen right off the bat, but just stick behind the team, stick behind the players, and hopefully here soon, one, I might be able to make the trip out to Danville, get to see the barn. That's one I got to check off the list. And the other thing is hopefully they can just start playing at a higher level.
Yeah, definitely. And I know when I talked to Ellen, I interviewed her shortly after the news broke the team was going to come out. It would have been last season. And that was one of the things she said, that she's all about her team is going to be a development team. They're going to encourage guys to take those call-ups. Because, I don't know if all the listeners know, but a call-up is not something that you have to take. If a team calls you and you want to stick around and play, for your team in the SPHL, you have every right to. But the way that they're doing is they encourage it. And I think that's good. And if the guy goes up there and it's not working, you can always get asked to sit back. It's a two-way street, And so I like what they're doing. I hope maybe they can close the season out on a high note. Maybe get one against Peoria or Quad City just to kind of boost the morale of the franchise and the fan base and go from there. And we'll see what happens next year. Like you said, they'll have the off season to look at things. They're going to have their head coach the whole off season instead of like 2 days before the season starts. So that's going to be a plus. So that's another thing with Macon too that we didn't mention is Macon's also another team that didn't have a head coach to start the season until right around because Kerr left the team abruptly or for I don't remember what personal reasons is I think what official his statement was, and then resurfaced later on in the season in Birmingham. So I'm not saying anything bad about that. I'm kind of running the story down. I think my tone may have came off wrong there, but we're going to move on before I shoot myself in the foot anymore. Let's talk Evansville and Pensacola. So they played a tough series, and this is 2 teams that I think are going to be tough teams in the playoffs. So Evansville got them Friday 4-1. They had a 3-0 lead going into the third before Blasek was able to get that shorthanded goal, but it was just too little too late. And then Saturday night, Pensacola was all over them. They were up 4-0 before the Bolts ever even got on the board. And then it was the same story, different team both nights, the way it worked out. And Evansville, I don't know if I missed something along the lines, and maybe but Austin Plevy wasn't playing when he came to Birmingham. I didn't see him on the roster. Brian Billett, I think he's just resting for the playoffs. They did waive Evan Moist today, so I'm pretty sure Billett's coming back, and well-deserved rest. The dude's played more games than any other goaltender in the league. But yeah, so I don't know. Maybe after this past weekend, he might not anymore, because I know Levine's cat was right up there too for Peoria, But Evansville's actually, I don't know if that's a strategy. It's not a bad strategy to rest your stars like that as you're coming in. You're in, and what is 6th, 7th, and 8th? What's the difference really? You're going to play one of the top 3 teams in the league, but they are at risk of falling to number 8 now. And I don't know if Evansville I don't know how well they would match up against a Knoxville team if Knoxville stayed number 1. But yeah, and then Pensacola, real quick, they're locked into that 6th spot. They can't move up, they can't move down, so they're going to hold that 6th spot, and so they're going to end up playing whoever that 3 seed ends up being. And I'm telling you, I don't think I've been saying it for about a month now. I don't think you want to face Pensacola in the playoffs. That's the way I feel about it. Let's go ahead and talk to me about Pensacola. Let's start there.
Yeah, Pensacola, outside of Evansville, when their offense is humming, specifically that top line with Parrish and Blasick and Elkstom, they play maybe the prettiest offensive game in the entire league. When Roanoke went down there in mid-March after the Birmingham game on that Thursday night, the Friday game was a barn burner, and it was tied in the 3rd. And then with 5 minutes left, that top line is out for Pensacola, and they have a perfect shift and take the lead. And Roanoke answered right back, and that's when the Dogs really needed a win at that point. They had lost 6 in a row going into that game, and then off the faceoff after Roanoke scored, that same line went back down and had another just perfectly worked play to go up again. It was 3 goals in about 80 seconds of hockey.
Yeah,
so it was a great ending, but they're one of those teams where if they come out and they're playing a crisp game and their passes are to the tape, their spacing works out really well. Bondarenko is a player that I think is really underrated in the league. He's not the biggest guy, but he's just really savvy, really smart with the puck. And he kind of gets a lot of things done from the back end pushing forward, and he's not a defenseman by nature. I'm pretty sure he's a forward kind of converted, which we've seen a few of those have success in the SPHL this year. But yeah, across the board, they're just a really, really solid offensive team. Now, they're not the most physical team in the league by any means, and I think that if they got a team like Huntsville could basically play a very similar style and just out-talent them, out-skill them, because that's kind of the games that they both play. They like to play run and gun and get out on the perimeter and just try to use their speed to really stretch you thin, and then just carve you up with some well-worked passes. And, on the other end, if they got a team like Fayetteville, and, Fayetteville is more of a counter-attacking odd man rush, use their speed, but in a little bit of a different way, I think that could be a bit of a better matchup for Pensacola, actually, than Huntsville is when you talk about, needing to win 2 out of 3. But, yeah, Pensacola, I definitely wouldn't want to see them in the playoffs either. They played pretty close games with Roanoke in their matchups, but again, it's a clash of styles, and we'll have to wait and see if they end up getting Huntsville or if Fayetteville can maybe leapfrog over the Havoc, because I think that might be what the Ice Flyers are kind of crossing their fingers for heading into the President's Cup.
Yeah, definitely. So, and you're right. I mean, it seems like Pensacola could just score at will. I can't remember. I can't count on one hand how many times I've just watched them go down by a goal. They don't care, and then they'll just go down there and then they'll score 2. And they're like, okay, I mean, we were down, now we're winning, so do something about that. They're a fun team to watch, and they got that championship pedigree. Not a lot of guys are on the team from last year, but I keep preaching it. The organization has the championship pedigree. There's something you can't. That's just something you can't buy, I guess. And so So I don't know. I'm interested to see how it all plays out. I may look like a fool, and people are probably going to call me out. If they get swept or something in the first round, everybody's going to be like, "Oh, you're an idiot." But hey, if you don't take risks, then what are you doing, all right?
Yeah, and it's like we were talking about before. This is probably about as well balanced of an 8 seed field as you could have hoped for.
Yeah.
Even with some of the 1-8, 2-7 matchups, the 1 seed and 2 seed are there for a reason. Don't get me wrong, and they've done the job all year long in the regular season. But there's not really any pushovers or any teams that you can just go in and expect to win, 2 games and get your third game off of rest and watch the rest of the league while you wait for the next week. There's going to be some really good knockdown, drag out type of first round matchups, and I think all 4 of those teams really that won't have home ice advantage are capable of pulling off something in the first round, and then who knows from there.
Yeah, definitely. So let's jump to Evansville. That's a team that Roanoke's chasing right now and could possibly catch. Evansville's kind of, I guess they've been kind of inconsistent this season as well. I don't know exactly what's going on. I mean, like I said, they got probably one of the best goaltenders in the league. The guy finally getting some rest, but they seem to be hit or miss. They'll go on these runs and then they'll fall on their face. And right now, what did I say? I think they're 500 in their last 10 games. I think they're 5-5 if I'm right. And I don't know how do you feel about Evansville? I don't know if they're peaking like a lot of these other teams are heading into the playoffs. It seems like they're kind of, I don't know the word for it, just kind of staying put.
With Evansville, they're a mixed bag right now, and I got to give them a lot of credit. But if you would look at the game recaps from this past month or month and a half, where they've kind of kept Roanoke at bay and won some big games along the way, and look back at some of their game recaps from November and December, you don't recognize anybody's name. And
No.
you brought up Plevy. He's hasn't been playing consistently. And I do think that's one of those situations where potentially they're trying to make sure that him and Brian Billett are healthy and 100% ready to go for what looks like will probably be a matchup with Peoria in the first round. But I'm getting the emails from Tommy Pecoraro at 11:30 at night, 12 at night. I'm checking them when I get home from my long day at the arena, and I'm like, who's this Chatham guy who's just tearing it up recently? Who's done this defenseman who's got like 8 points in 8 games since he's joined the team. So, and there's 4 or 5 players that are like that for Evansville. They went out and they also added some pieces from around the league, not just guys out of college, but they went and got Evan Moyes stepped in and helped them out. And, he's kind of playing on a few different teams this year in the league, but can get the job done if he comes out with a hot hand on any given night. Dylan Hill, a former Rail Yard Dawg who played a lot here throughout this year and got some ECHL time in Fort Wayne as well. So they're kind of blending it together where, they didn't have a lot of ECHL guys that they were necessarily waiting to get back, but they're adding a couple pieces from around the league. And they've gone really heavy on some of these players that were coming out of college, and they're putting up numbers. They're responding very quickly to the change in the level of play, the different locker room, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
Not sure what's in the water out there in Indiana, but they're a team, I think, that, given their familiarity with Peoria as far as their veteran core, and then you have all these players that have come in that, they don't remember losing to Peoria a couple times in November or December. It's a fresh slate for them, and having some close travel back and forth to kind of ease that series as well. I think it gives the Thunderbolts a shot to maybe play spoiler, at least pick up maybe one off of the Rivermen and kind of make them feel the pressure in a game 3.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I'm just going to stick with it. Nobody's a pushover this year. I don't think I'll be shocked to see a sweep is the way I'm putting it. I'll be shocked to see a sweep. But so let's talk about what I didn't think was going to be the series of the weekend, because I thought Fayetteville-Huntsville was going to be the series to watch, and what ended up being the series to watch was Roanoke-Knoxville. I mean, it had absolutely everything you wanted. I mean, people even got a little bloody. I mean, it was just something else. It was 2 hard-nosed fights, and Roanoke took the first night with 3 goals in the second period is what ended up being the difference. And what was it, Mac Jansen, I believe he scored 50 seconds in and kind of got the score and started there in the second period. And then Knoxville came back and they decided they were going to score a touchdown. But the score's not all the story in that one, you know. So it was 3-0, and then Roanoke came back 3-2, and then it was 6-2, and then Roanoke came back 6-4, and then it just, I don't know, too little, too late, or it just they just couldn't keep rallying. And I've seen Roanoke do this all year long, but I don't want to start with Roanoke. I want to start with Knoxville. So Knoxville can clinch the top seed if they win one game this weekend. They control their own destiny. Other than that, I mean, it doesn't matter the other clinching first place scenarios, and they're going to play Evansville. So, I mean, that's another one that could potentially be a first round playoff matchup if Evansville drops and Roanoke, you know, like that. But they can also drop to third. It's very rare that this would happen, but Peoria and Huntsville are going to have to win all their games, and Knoxville's going to have to not win anything. But that's how close the top three are. Is you know, I mean, nothing is decided yet, but I feel like Knoxville is one of the favorites to win it all this year. They've been consistent all year long. They've kept their core around. They've added pieces that they needed to. They made that trade for Casey he changed it from Kolczewski to Kolcheski when he got there. And then they got rid of, he got injuries and he got waived. Now he's in Peoria, but it doesn't seem like anything they do, they're not really missing a beat. And their young players are stepping up. I mean, that's my take. What's your take? That's why I got you here. How do you feel about Knoxville?
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before we came on to record. Knoxville just kind of has that quality about them where you can never count them out of the game. Unless it's like a 3-goal game with 30 seconds left, you cannot take your foot off the pedal. You cannot take a deep breath. Roanoke in their head-to-head matchups this year has had plenty of games that have been tight through 2 periods or just tight all the way into post-regulation type of contest. And in all 4 1-goal games this year that have been played, Roanoke with a 1-3 record in those games, I'd say that, you know, the Dogs probably deserve to get 2 points in 3 of those 4 matchups, only did it once. And it's just because Knoxville, you know, they have that lucky horseshoe in the back pocket where they just kind of stick around. And if you let them hang around, they're going to make a winning play down the stretch. And going back to this past weekend, and you nailed it right on the head as far as, boy, what a series it was. It was absolute insanity. It was a great way to end the home regular season at Berglund Center with our fans before we get a hopefully more than one playoff game, maybe against the Ice Bears here and a couple of weekends. That Friday night game, Roanoke didn't really come out with a whole lot ahead of steam, but neither did Knoxville. Excuse me. They both were kind of in that feeling each other out type of stage. Knoxville gets a rebound goal, and Ballant's been, one of their best players throughout the year, really strong rookie that they've got up on the forward line. And then the second period may have been the best 20 minutes that Roanoke put together all year. They had 21 shots, and if not for Christian Stead, who has been a force in net for Knoxville all season long, it could have been 5 or 6-2 by the time the third period rolled around. Roanoke ended up taking it 3-1 out of that period, and then got things done down the stretch. And of course, everyone wants to talk about the disallowed goal on Friday night, and I think that we all kind of expected Knoxville to let that fuel their fire into Saturday's game. I won't get too far into the disallowed goal itself. I'll try to I commented on it on the air, and I'll probably just leave it at that. But that was, again, one of those games where Roanoke, for the second period and about 19 minutes and 30 seconds of the third period, minus Knoxville's power play goal that made it 3-2, did what they needed to do to win the game against a very talented team. Knoxville couldn't even pull Christian Stead out to go empty net until there were 30 seconds left. They had one chance going right to left down the ice to get the 6-on-5 goal to tie it. 2.9 seconds left. Bedlam ensues down in the crease, and they decided to disallow that goal, whether it was for goaltender interference, which probably should have been the call if there is one that's going to disallow it, or whether the goal did come off of its moorings, as was the explanation, and it doesn't really look like it did that. It was a very confusing kind of stretch of time, and I think both teams would have been frustrated regardless of how that call would have gone down. Roanoke having played well enough to get the victory in that game and leaving a lot of goals out on the ice, and Knoxville kind of doing what they do best, and they thought that they at least deserved a point and 5 more minutes up on the clock for overtime. I told Joel Silverberg from Knoxville before Saturday night, I think this is going to be really physical. It could turn into a bloodbath. And I wasn't trying to be literal in that prediction, but Knoxville came out. They were just buzzing out of the locker room. They played a really good game, and I think the thing that impressed me with Roanoke is they did not have a clean game offensively, but the effort was there, the hustle was there, and when they had some of the struggles that they did a couple of months back, you didn't see that when they went down last night. They went down 3 in the second period, pulled it right back within 1. They went down 4 in the third period, and at that point you kind of start looking for the exits, and you're like, people might think this one's over. And with 5 minutes to go, it was a 2-goal game, and they had a couple of empty net chances that could have cut that deficit in half. So, Roanoke hung with a team that was clicking on all cylinders and is really talented, even on a night where Roanoke didn't really bring their best punches, at least on the scoreboard. And there, of course, were plenty of fights and plenty of
pretty good punches.
Yeah, Travis. I'm sure you'll get a good chat in with him. He had a nice little right-handed hook that caught Colthorpe pretty good from Knoxville, and then you had the Leonard boys, Sean for Roanoke and Steven for Knoxville, both kind of buzzing around, looking maybe to stir it up a little bit, and they both definitely were in the spotlight throughout that game, and. Yeah, of course, I think a lot of people are wondering about Brant Sherwood. He did take a pretty nasty hit down to the ice on what was called a 2-minute holding against Kyler Matthews, and scraped his head up pretty good. He got a few stitches, but he's saying as far as how he feels, 2 thumbs up. He's going to be ready come playoff time. He's excited for it, and he's battled all season long through some nagging stuff. So he's ready to get those stitches out whenever they let him, and he'll be ready to go when Dan Bremner asks upon him.
That's good. That's good to hear. So Sherwood would be a big loss going into the playoffs if he wasn't ready to go. He's one of the cornerstones. So let's get a little more in depth with Roanoke here. So Roanoke is a team that started really bad, played really well, played really bad, and now we're playing really good again. And I don't know why, because the roster doesn't seem like it's changed a whole heck of a lot to me. Like the core group is still there. It's the same goaltenders, and I don't know what's going on, but it's not, like I said, Roanoke's never out of a game. I never see them out of games. They're always in every game. They're losing close games, but it just seems like when the losses are coming, they stack up. And they're consistent at being, at winning a lot and then losing a lot. But there's no in the middle for them. And that's the way that I've kind of felt about them all year. But they're a team that's playing really well headed into the playoffs. And like I said, I don't know. I mean, I actually think it'd be a fun series between Knoxville in the first round if it plays out that way after what we just seen this last weekend. It'll be fun from, a fan perspective. I don't know, player perspective. I don't know if you want to worry about all that going on in the playoffs, but kind of talk to me about the Rail Yard Dawgs this year. Their up and down season.
Yeah, that Knoxville Roanoke series, I was leaving the arena Saturday night, and I was like, I cannot imagine these guys having to go back out in 48 hours and do that again, because it was a war zone out there. And I think that can be a really fun potential playoff matchup. But yeah, the Rail Yard Dawgs, it's been a streaky season results-wise. I think that all year there's been a really good confidence level in that locker room, whether it was the start of the year where they, couldn't quite grab that first win in the first few weekends, even though they put themselves in the position to. Then, like you said, they played with every single team basically in the SPHL from, the start of December, mid-December-ish until, going out of the month of January. There wasn't really a lot of teams that were, going to be striking fear into Roanoke. And then I think that Dan Bremner, and sitting down with him kind of in late February, so it was probably about the time of the trip that they took to Knoxville. I had a Coach's Corner episode, and he said, when you're winning games, it's sometimes easy to maybe overlook some of those finer details, some of those things that, you should be consistently fine-tuning. And I don't think it was a conscious thing. I just think that, things were going well. Everyone's cheeks are rosier. Everyone's smiling when you've got a nice hot streak like they had going there. And I think that, once those first, 2 or 3 losses kind of started to stack up into February, it just kind of took them a while to regain their confidence. They knew their ability was there, and it was just about, getting kind of, back in that rhythm, back in that flow. And it didn't hurt either to get some of our ECHL contributors back out on the ice. I mean, Nick Ford, since he's returned for that Macon series, he's got a 6-game point streak with 10 points. It's pretty darn good. He had a 5-game goal streak that just got snapped in the Saturday game against Knoxville. And, you get Sean Leonard back, he's going to probably block about as many shots as anybody. His effort's tremendous on the back end. Bryce Martin, a very steady defenseman. And then, Sammy Bernard, who had played in Knoxville earlier this year, as well as with Quad City. He won 4 out of 5 starts as he came into the team. And the game he lost in Fayetteville, he put up a pretty strong performance. It just was that Brett Moran decided that he was going to be an octopus that day and make about 50 saves. So, they're another one of those teams, a little different from Evansville in the team makeup. Roanoke's kept their core along, I think, a little bit tighter and has maybe gotten more games out of their core than the Thunderbolts have. But, a few new rookies and a few new ECHL guys coming back, as well as a veteran goaltender like Sammy Bernard, who you can now pair up with Austin Rodebush. And that gives you a tandem that I think that Roanoke fans think is strong enough heading into the postseason that they can make a nice little run, whether they're the 8th seed, 1 seed, 5 seed. I think that they're just throwing that out the window, especially when you look at the way that they played these past 2 weekends against Knoxville and Huntsville.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't even mention the Huntsville. I mean, that was what started Huntsville's losing streak, was Roanoke taking care of business up there. But yeah, one of my favorite things about watching Roanoke is Roanoke's one of those teams that they can kill you with talent and the Mac Jansen's offensive skills and Nick Ford's skills, but they can also punch you in the mouth. I mean, not literally, but I mean, yeah, they can literally, but I mean, a physical team. Roanoke is a big physical team and can play. It can almost play whatever way you want to play. They can play that game with you. And I think that's going to be a key coming into the playoffs, because I think that's why they'll match up. That's definitely why they match up so well with Huntsville, I think, is because, Huntsville's not a very physical team. And so they can use their physical side, and they can also score with you just like Huntsville. And I don't know. I mean, am I far off here? Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Well, in the past couple of weeks, the depth scoring has been kind of the big difference between, some of those 1-goal losses during that tough February into March stretch that they had, and, turning those around into, 1-goal wins, 2-goal wins against, really solid contending teams like a Knoxville or like a Huntsville that have came in the past couple of weekends. And I think the big difference, you had Brady Hefner get really red hot just before Nick Ford came back. He's now got 40 points on the year as a rookie and just kind of does a little bit of everything. He's a pest on the penalty kill. He's got 4 shorthanded goals. But at the same time, if you leave him in enough space from, the left wing circle, he can pick his spots out too. And you add that to, kind of your usual suspects, Mac Jansen, Jeff Jones, Travis Armstrong. Those guys have played a lot of hockey in this league, CJ Stubbs. And if you can kind of pair that group with Brady Hefner and Nick Ford scoring goals, another veteran that came in like Garrett Sargis, who has been very underrated. And then you have a couple of guys that I think play their role really well. Josh Ninadal might be one of the more underrated players in the SPHL just because of how frustrating he is to play, because you hear him play. You don't see him half the time because he's knocking you into the glass so often. And so I think everyone's kind of bought into those different roles. And, whether it's Huntsville or a Knoxville or a Peoria, I think that there are definitely, style matchups that, given Roanoke's physical play, as you kind of touched on, I think that's why they have success against a team like Huntsville. I think that's why Knoxville games are typically pretty tight between the two. Knoxville will play physical with you, but I think that they like to spread it out a little bit as well. And, that's why I think Peoria, when Roanoke's played them this year, it's been either so one way or another. There haven't really been a lot of tight results in their limited 5 matchups this year because their styles are very similar. And it's one of those things where whoever kind of comes out with their foot on the pedal the first 10 minutes and sets the tone might really be able to dictate kind of the way that game goes. So you look at those 3 potential matchups, knowing that Knoxville is probably going to be the one that you face. And I think you're okay with that matchup if you're the Rail Yard Dogs. But at the same time, if you knock off Knoxville in the first round, it doesn't get any easier because you're going to get the best team remaining seed-wise as the number 8. So they've got to go through the Giants, and they know that heading down this stretch. But I don't think that they're really batting their eye heading in to the President's Cup.
Yeah, good point. So I think with that being said, I think now might be a good time to send it over to Travis Armstrong and get his take on his life and times in Roanoke and playing hockey. So we'll send it over there, and then we'll come back and finish wrapping up the league. So my next guest is Smith Falls, Ontario native. He's in his 7th year pro. His SPHL career started with the Louisiana Ice Skaters. Ever since then, he's been a Roanoke Rail Yard Dawg, except for last season where he spent some time with the Ice Flyers winning the President's Cup. And this season, he's on a roll. He leads all defensemen in assists with 32 assists. He currently sits number 4 in scoring among defensemen. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Travis Armstrong of the Roanoke Rail Yard Dawgs. Travis, how you doing, man?
Doing well, James. How you doing?
Oh, no complaints here. I was dodging some tornadoes here today for a little while, but
yeah, we just got a ton of rain actually within the last few hours. So nothing too crazy, but it's coming down pretty good.
Yeah, that's springtime in our part of the world. That's
down in the swamp, right?
That's right. I don't know. Not a lot of tornadoes up there in Ontario growing up, I assume.
No. We steered clear of those. It's a lot of whiteout storms. A lot of snow.
I think I could handle that better. I mean, just sit in the house.
Yeah, that's true. If you're just lounging at home, I mean, it's probably better than having a tornado roll through. But if you got to get out and move around and scrape your car off every morning, that's kind of the worst part about snow.
Yeah, definitely. I spent the first 30 years of my life living in Colorado, so I know the struggle with that too. Not quite as much as it would be up in Ontario. Like people think Colorado is just plastered with snow, but that's the mountains. I didn't live there.
Right. Yeah. You're good.
But yeah, so thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. I think everybody's really going to enjoy it. I've gotten a lot of requests with your name behind it, actually. So I figured, you know what, I better listen to my listeners. They want to hear Army come on. So here we go.
Hopefully I don't disappoint.
Yeah. No, I doubt you will. I'm the one that does the disappointing around here.
Yeah, make me look good, right?
Yeah, definitely. Throw you a bunch of softballs.
There you go.
But, so let's talk about how you got started in the game, man. Were you born with skates on your feet, just like every other Canadian?
Yeah, pretty much. The youngest of 4. My oldest brother, he's 9 years older than me, and he played for the junior team in my hometown, Smith Falls Bears. And so when I was as young as I can remember, would go watch him. He was 6'2" and 260 pounds. So he was as of a big of a meathead as you can get. He would fight, hit, do pretty much everything he could to stay in the lineup. So I was able to go watch him at a young age, and then just played local growing up, and then grew 6 inches when I was 16. Got super tall, played junior B, and then played junior A for a few years, and then just kind of took a step forward every year pretty much.
Yeah. So height is something that runs in your family, huh? Your parents pretty tall too?
Yeah. I'm the tallest. My sister is 5'10". Other brother's 6'1", and I'm 6'5". My dad was 6'4". So yeah, we're pretty tall, but everyone's stockier than I am. I just got the height on them. So
yeah. Well, that reach worked out this last weekend. Whenever you got into it with a Knoxville guy, I think.
Yeah, that came into my favor for sure.
Yeah, that definitely benefited. I talked with Mitch about that a little bit on when I have with him on here on the podcast, and I try not to get too far into that because I know guys don't really like to dig deep into that kind of stuff.
No, yeah, that was kind of the heat of a moment. I kind of felt a little bad afterwards, but it kind of carried over from something happened on Friday, and then that happened on Saturday. And I think we were down. Yeah, we weren't playing our best game, so I kind of wires crossed, one of those wires crossing moments, and then next thing you know, he's got blood leaking all over his face. So
Yeah. It wasn't as bad as Jay Beagle's wires crossing though. Whenever he took down Troy
oh
Terry.
yeah.
It was
I know.
brutal,
I've
man.
only seen a few clips of that. Is that when he shoved Zegers from behind? Give him a
Yeah,
caution?
he got Zegras, and then Fowler came up to kind of defend Zegras, and then
Right.
Troy Terry showed up, and Beagle turned around and just started beating the living crap out of him.
I like to have, I want to make sure my opponents have consent before that happens, right?
Yeah, there was no Terry didn't drop the gloves or anything. He was just getting beat down.
Swinging.
It was rough, man. It was rough.
Yeah, I think they were down 5-0 too in that game. So I think
yeah.
So
that's hockey though.
It's hockey. Yeah, people don't realize sometimes when you're getting pumped like that, anything can kind of flip you off.
Yeah, and you got to, and the way that I think about it is I mean, you might face these guys in the playoffs, and so you got to send a message. That's the way I've always viewed hockey. The game's definitely changing as we move along, but
for sure, in ways that are good, right? It's getting better. You'd say, like even like the last 6 years I've been in the SPHL, it's definitely gotten like way better every year.
Yeah.
And it's not, not as many fights happening, but like, I don't know, this year I feel like there's still enough fights to keep it relevant in the game, which I think is what hockey needs to have continuing moving forward. So I like it. It's fun to, even when I'm watching as a fan, either NHL or any other games, I like to see fights happen.
Yeah. I mean, it pumps up the crowd. It pumps up the boys on the bench. I mean, both sides. I mean, I don't know, maybe in Troy Terry's case, Anaheim was getting pumped up for the wrong reason because that was just rough.
Yeah, but I would say so, yeah.
But generally, it's like I said, I like it in the game. I don't want to see it go away, but I have a feeling someday it will. But I think
someday, yeah. But I don't know. It polices the game itself. You know what I mean? So it's just like it avoids people taking liberties on other star players. So I think it helps the star players if anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the used up phrase would be, where would Wayne Gretzky be at if he didn't have those guys with his back? I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know how that would have went.
I'm sure he would have done well still, but yeah, exactly. If he didn't have guys there to, back him up, he would have been, and especially in that area, the 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
He would have been eaten alive.
Yeah, he'd have got crushed a lot because he wasn't the biggest.
He was he was soaking wet, probably like 180 pounds, right? So he would have gotten beat up pretty bad.
Yeah. So that brings me. So you and I are really close in the same age. So I got to ask you: are you, being an Ontario guy, are you a Maple Leafs fan, or do you got another team?
So Ottawa is probably like 40. Well, the rink that Ottawa plays in Canada is like 45 minutes from where I grew up. So
I got you.
I was a huge. I've kind of hopped off bandwagons, man. I was a huge Doug Gilmour fan.
Yeah.
Obviously in the mid 90s. So I remember having posters of him, and then when Ottawa was. When I was getting old enough to kind of go watch games, I'd go watch a lot of Ottawa Senators games, became really good or big fans of them. And then I was working goalie camps for the last 7 or 8 summers with the goalie coach who's now with the Leafs.
Okay.
And so I've kind of hopped on the Leafs bandwagon just for his sake. I want to see them do well just so he can kind of keep his job.
Yeah. And Ottawa sucks this year.
Ottawa, yeah, it's tough watching Ottawa these days. And so I kind of like became a Leafs fan right at the best time possible. But I'm a big Leafs fan right now. I
gotcha. I don't know. I don't want to say too much about them because I feel like it's already been said. I just hope that they can. I hope they can advance this year because I'd love to see that. I mean, the skill on that team is ridiculous.
They could honestly go undefeated for the rest of the year, and I'll still have doubts that they'll get past the first round.
At this
point, it's just like you just don't even talk about it. You just kind of let it marinate itself, and then if they get past the first round, then I'll be, I'll be into it.
That's right. I'm with you, and I'm not even a Leafs fan. So, but I don't want to talk about it. I just want to see it happen, and then we'll discuss it after it happens.
Exactly. We'll keep it at that. Yeah.
So we'll kind of move back to your career. I got us off track there, but so you went and played NCAA Division III college hockey with Finlandia. Did I say that right? Yeah, I said that right.
That's right. Yeah, it's a real place.
Yeah, I looked down because I was like, did I write that down right? Yeah, I did. So where is that school?
That's in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan.
Okay, all right.
That's far. Yeah,
there's all kinds of schools.
From where I live in Smith Falls, I have to drive north to get there.
Really?
Yeah.
How about that?
Talk about snow. That place is whoa.
Yeah. That's big snowmobile country up there, man.
Big time. Yeah. It's good though. It's right off Lake Superior. It's a pretty small town. got recruited there my last year at juniors, and it was kind of one of those things where I was talking with schools at the start of the year, and then I kind of weaned off a little bit, and then I wasn't sure. I applied for college for firefighting. So I got accepted for that, and then I went and visited Finlandia, and I kind of just thought, what the heck, like if I do a year, we'll see how it goes. Went there for a year, loved it, did pretty well, and then ended up sticking 4 years there.
Yeah, you always had a letter. Well, the last 3 years, you always had a letter on your chest.
Yeah.
You were the captain your junior and senior year, so
Yeah.
something must have worked out for you. Tell me about your playing time there, man.
Yeah, so like the coach there, he was going into his first full year there, so he was recruiting all of his guys that summer. So there was 16 freshmen, big freshman class. So he was a big fan right off the start. And like college it's funny, like if you can get a coach that can really like you as a player, I feel like you have endless possibilities to do well. So he really put me in a place where I could succeed. I was playing like 40 minutes my first year every night. Yeah, it was crazy. I was getting a ton of ice time, just developing pretty well from a standpoint of just being more confident as a player. D3, we were in a pretty good conference. We weren't exactly a great team ourselves, but we were able to play against good teams, which again helped me develop as a defenseman. So yeah, it was good, man. Played a ton and had a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's always great. And a lot of people don't realize, like, when you say D3, this isn't like college football. D3 hockey is really high quality hockey. I mean, and
yeah,
there's just so much hockey in college that you had to knock down a few divisions.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty much D1 and D3, right? So
yeah.
But I can see like some conferences could be a little oversaturated as far as maybe the caliber isn't as great just because there's so many teams. Or so many schools rather. So, but like, I mean, if you're like, obviously the SUNYAC's a great conference. A lot of XD1 guys and good like junior players get there. And then the WIAC, the Wisconsin League, is pretty good from what I remember. And then we were NCHA, which is pretty, like we had St. Norbert, Adrian, Scholastica. Norbert, Lawrence, just pretty top end teams in D3. So I feel like if you're playing against those teams, it can be competitive, which is good.
Yeah, definitely. What was the barn like you played in? I just I want to get an image in my head.
Cold.
Was it
extremely
cold? Was it?
Yeah, so we would practice at 6 a.m. every morning.
Oh.
And we had no insulation in our rink. Yeah, it was the county. Yeah, it was bad. Oh man. So it was like that first lap that you took when you first stepped on the ice was something that I'll never forget.
Yeah,
just piercing your ears and your eyes were squinting. It was pretty funny looking back. Just like I'm just picturing guys right now and it's like seeing their faces after taking that first lap.
Yeah, definitely.
Puts hair in your chest, that's for sure.
Yeah, 40 minutes of ice time. You were probably begging for that just to keep the blood flowing too.
Oh yeah. And like the water bottles would be freezing by the end of practice. Like couldn't even squirt water because they're frozen, icicles all over your cage. That's awesome. It was great. It was good though. Like a lot of good players. Met a lot of good friends there.
Yeah, for sure. That's so after that you got called up to the ECHL after your senior year closed out. Tell me a little bit how that all came about.
Yeah. So there's actually a local guy in Hancock where I went to school that he knows like an agent, so to speak, that lives downstate Michigan. And so he pretty much just refers, because Michigan Tech University is up in where I went to school too. So there's, a lot of hockey players coming and going. And so he just refers players to him and on who he thinks that can, eventually play pro, hopefully. And so got referred to this guy named Jay Storm. He kind of gave me a call like a few weeks before my season ended, kind of introduce himself, said he's going to try and get me a call up to either the coach or the SP, and was like, sure, like good luck. I think we were last place. We didn't make playoffs that year. So it would have been let's see how good your sailing or your sales skills are. So
yeah.
Our last game was on the Saturday. And then Monday he gave me a call saying that, we're going to try and get you to Kalamazoo. It's looking good. I'm like, oh, wow. Like, didn't even know where Kalamazoo was as far as like a geographical standpoint. Looked it up and they're downstate in the coast. And so it was kind of like one of those where I didn't really like believe it until it was like coming into fruition. Like I didn't really get my hopes up too much, so to speak. So Then Tuesday rolled around, or no, was it what? No, I think it was still, whatever, still Monday. And then he called and said that, you're going to sign a PTO with the Kalamazoo Wings. I'm like, holy shit, like that's crazy. Their head coach, I gave him my number, so the head coach gave me a call and said they're going to book a flight for the Wednesday morning. We played Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so 4 and 5.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like right off the bat, just getting hit with that 4 and 5 schedule, which like to me it was just like I never played that many games, so I'm just like, let's see how this goes. More so just excited for the opportunity, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so ended up getting a ride. My buddy had a place in Marquette where my flight was leaving from on Wednesday morning. So I went there on Tuesday night, got on a flight at like 6 a.m. Went from Marquette to Detroit. And then I missed my layover from Detroit to Kalamazoo.
Oh.
So I had to text the coach and be like, hey, like, not looking good, like still sitting on the plane. My layover flight's going to be in a half hour, and I think it's an hour flight. And so he's like, yeah, that's fine. We'll have a driver get sent to you to the airport in Detroit. And so I'm like, okay, sure. Like, sounds good. Get to Detroit, get off. There's a guy holding a sign with my name on it. So I grab my stuff, hop into his car, and drive 2 hours to Kalamazoo. So at this point, it was probably like 3:30, 4 o'clock. Didn't eat anything all day. Was in my sweatpants, like didn't sleep the night before. Like I was kind of like playing in my first pro game that night, kind of like all the odds were against me.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, this is absolutely insane. And so I get to the rink, told the coach I hadn't eaten anything. So he gave me his car. I drove his car to Subway, grabbed a sub, went around 4 o'clock. And usually I eat at like noon or 1 o'clock, and sometime earlier in the day, get a pregame nap, and no, none of that happened. Then I go back and get fitted for my gear, and then go and warm up. I was just like completely just surreal, like what was going on. Go out there and probably have like the best game of my life. Like I was zipping pucks. I got an assist. I sent a couple breakaway passes. It was just like, I don't even really remember playing, but I just remember like playing extremely well. And then I got the player of the game jersey after we won.
Wow. Game one in your pro career, starting out with a bang.
Yeah, exactly. Didn't have any, like, pretty much had the worst day of my life traveling, and then I get there and I have the best game ever and get the player of the game. It was it was pretty surreal.
So I mean, you had to you just don't ever sleep before games anymore.
Oh, so now I have zero superstitions. Yeah, I don't even really, like, if I have to eat like an hour past when I usually eat, it's just like I can't let this affect my game day kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. How important did you feel seeing a guy? I've never had a guy holding a sign with my name when I got off of a plane. How important did that make you feel?
Pretty cool. Yeah. It was Armstrong Travis, and it was this like Asian guy. I'm just like, I think, that's me. Grab my things.
That's awesome.
It was pretty neat.
Welcome to the coast, man. So that's cool. So you played about 4 games there, and then the next season was whenever you made your way to the SPHL and with the team that doesn't exist anymore, and you played in Louisiana. So tell me, Louisiana, coming from way up north, playing all your college, way up north and everything, and then you end up in Louisiana. Tell me about that experience, showing up in Louisiana. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that was as culture shocked as you can possibly imagine. Just like the weather there was crazy. Like just like the humidity that was there was just like nothing I've ever felt in my life before. Like it was like a wet feeling. But it was good, man. Like so I went to Kalamazoo's camp that year and got released. So I went from Kalamazoo to Lafayette, Louisiana in a span of 2 days. Got a flat tire on the way down, so it was kind of like I was ready to get there.
Yeah.
But it was good, man. I had fun. We practiced in this like the most rundown rink you can even imagine, called Planet Ice. Yeah.
Nice.
This thing, like the boards were like slanted like that. There were like pipes underneath the ice, and like if you like cut down too deep, pink stuff would squirt out. It was like the first year pro. It was like the biggest, I don't know. It was the biggest eye-opening experience I've ever had.
Yeah, that's
like,
crazy.
Is this normal for this league? I didn't understand, like, and then they ended up folding. But no, it was like for my first year pro. I mean, like it was a great group of guys, good veteran group. So it was good as far as me learning how to play and getting more ice time. Drew Macholi was our coach, liked him too. He was a good guy, and it was fun, man.
Yeah, that's
Definitely.
it's always impressive to me that, I mean, it's like 90 degrees outside in December whenever you get down in the South, and then you walk into the rink and it's just cold, and it's like it's wintertime all of a sudden. I mean, it's
exactly. It's crazy. Well, it was Christmas Day, and like back home, it was like minus 13 Celsius, and it was plus 20 in like where I was.
Yeah,
it's like.
Yeah,
it makes no sense. It's
a whole different world. Did you get your family to come down to Louisiana for a game while you were there?
My brother and sister came down for a weekend, and they just like couldn't understand like this is where I lived. Like palm trees everywhere. Like we had a decent apartments, and just the weather alone. Like my brother loves good weather. He loves like sun, like plus 30 sun. And he was like in love with the place.
Yeah, I imagine. Is he going to move there pretty soon?
Some fried gator. Yeah, I turned into a local quick.
That's nice. That's awesome. It's awesome. And then after that, that was the year they folded after that season, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
So that's always a bummer when you see that. But after that, that's when you found your way to Roanoke. How'd you end up in Roanoke?
So they had the expansion draft that year. So that's when Evansville and Roanoke were coming into the league.
Yeah.
And so since we folded, I was a free agent, so I could have went to either team.
Yeah. So did anybody else call? You don't have to name drop, but you have any other calls on the phone ringing throughout the off season, or was you pretty much convinced?
No. Well, the funny part is the way I found out about Roanoke was I was living in Calgary that summer. And I was hiking. I was out hiking on a Saturday, and then I had no service, so I came back and I see a bunch of texts, like messages saying, like, "Congrats on Roanoke!" Like all this, like, "Can't wait to have you here." I'm just like, I had no idea like what anyone was talking about. And then I checked my voicemails, and the head coach gave me a call. And Sam Fedoruk, I played with him in Kalamazoo.
Yeah, okay.
He was a teammate of mine, yeah. And so he gave me a call and left the voicemail. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm going to the Roanoke Rail Yard Dawgs, wherever the heck that is.
Yeah, another place you had to look up on the map.
Yeah, I had no idea where Roanoke was. It worked out well. Yeah,
that's awesome. So that's actually a pretty cool story in itself. How you found out, and I mean, you just don't even know what's going on. But did you know that the draft was even going on that day? The expansion draft?
I had no clue.
No.
I had no clue that even like 2 new teams were coming into the league.
That's
I was completely naive about the whole thing. It was pretty. I mean, looking back at it now that I'm here, I have a girlfriend here, and I'm pretty much setting up here for life. It's just like, wow, like if Louisiana didn't fold, then who knows where I'd be right now.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be crazy. You might still be down in the bayou.
I could still be in the bayou eating gator. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. Did you like gator? That's one of the things I'm not a big fan of.
I had it once. What's that? Like that chain? Not All Stars.
I don't know.
Look at my computer. It's like I think it's like a Southern chain, but I had it there, and it was like it tastes like chicken to me.
Yeah, it just seems more chewy.
Yeah, more chewy, exactly. So it's like this is I'm always like a one and done kind of guy. Just that was it.
That was me too. Yeah, but you got to try stuff like that when you go to a place. You got to try the local food. I mean, you got to try what everybody else is eating, and sometimes it backfires on you.
I agree. Yeah, I had to try it once.
But so you that first year in Roanoke, you spent a lot of time. You were up and down. You were in Norfolk, Brampton, Manchester, Idaho, Indy. You actually spent a lot of time in Indy. I mean, that was all over the place. Tell me about that. That seems like a roller coaster of a season, going all over the coast and playing 22 games in Roanoke.
Yeah, definitely a whirlwind of a year, I would say. Couldn't really get my feet wet anywhere. It was kind of like those things where I wasn't really. I don't think I was completely ready to be where I was in the East Coast League as far as how I was playing. I would think a lot of that combined with like guys getting sent down, the entire like the whole feeder system, that kind of didn't work in my favor. But I feel like if I would have played maybe a little better, I probably would have had a little longer of a leash, I would say. But it was tough. You'd go to a spot and then you'd play a few games and you get released, and then you'd go back down, get called up somewhere else, then you wouldn't get a lot of ice time, and then the ice time you had, you weren't really that great. And so, but it was good, man. A lot of good experience, I would say, as far as developing.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely would have gotten probably like a different. I mean, how many? That's how many different coaches you
Oh
played for
yeah,
that
that was
year.
like
I mean, you get a different
six
point of
different
view.
coaches. Yeah, so I had every perspective I could even think of as far as hockey operations.
Yeah,
But no, it was good. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's part of my career, and I wouldn't really take it back. And like even like at the time, it was kind of just like it was what it was. You know, it was like I signed up to play minor pro hockey, and this is what comes with playing minor professional hockey. And so it's just like I kind of had a positive attitude on it. And so I was kind of just hoping that one place I would go, I'd find myself, you know, doing well. And I think Indy was that final spot where I was able to go there. They weren't as good, so I was able to kind of go there and kind of play a little more relaxed. And I think I played like 16 games there that year.
yeah, I think that's what
Something like
yeah,
that. Yeah. So it was, So I was able to spend at least a few months there, which was kind of nice to kind of get acclimated into the the town and the team.
for sure. So what keeps you coming back to Roanoke? I don't have the protected player stats. Have they protected you every year, or is it just something that?
I think they have. I think. I don't know, man. I love the area. We're kind of like right in the middle of a valley, so we're surrounded by hills. Good hiking spots. The downtown's super nice. Obviously good weather. I got my girlfriend here now, and so we're able to. We got a place together so that definitely helps. But I don't know, just the town, man. Just good people. They have a good youth program here as far as like up and coming kids that are playing hockey. That's been kind of exploding over the last few years, and so I like to be involved in that. I don't know, man. It just seems like a good fit for their stuff. Yeah.
You spend your off seasons in Roanoke as well?
I do now. Yeah.
Nice.
Usually so my first few years I would go home. I got family in Calgary and go there for a few months, train, play hockey, and then come back to wherever I was going. So
I got you. That's cool. It's always cool. I like to hear whenever guys, you know, that have been in the league for a while end up to set up camp in the town where they're playing, because a lot of these SPHL towns, these cities are actually pretty dang nice cities. They and people are missing out.
Yeah, I would say so. A lot of guys, it's crazy the amount of guys that have come here and like found their spouses or their wives.
Yeah.
Like there's like 3 or 4 guys that have rolled through here and ended up marrying, you know, someone from here.
That's awesome.
They say, Virginia is for lovers. That's their whole slogan. So
yeah, apparently it's true.
I don't know what it is with the women down here that isn't anywhere else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. That's awesome though. That's it's true though. We can't call it false advertising then. So,
exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit. You didn't play in Roanoke last year because Roanoke didn't play, obviously, and you spent a little bit of time in Knoxville, and then you went and played some time in Pensacola. And tell me about that season for you. That was just a crazy season for anybody playing in any level of minor league hockey.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's far from a normal season that I've ever had in professional hockey, I think. We kind of weren't able to go out to certain places, but it was pretty restricted, right? You couldn't really do as much. You're getting COVID tested, you know, a few times a week. But everybody was doing it. So it's not like we were the only ones that were doing it, but it was good, man. Like overall experience was pretty good. Met a lot of good guys there. I was there for probably I think I was there for like a month and a half. Didn't really work out on the hockey side of things. And so, but other than that, I liked it, man. There's some good people there. They could only do like 50% capacity, which was too bad because that place can get rocking, like especially on the road when you're playing there. When that place is full, it's a tough barn to play in. But no, it was good, man. Yeah, it was definitely a learning experience for me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just the whole year was just something else. Like just I don't know, from everybody that played last year, I always got to ask them about it because it was not normal at all.
Yeah, like you just like some good. Yeah, it was
being locked down, essentially, not being able, only having a few places to go. I mean, that is not the hockey player way. That's not my way. I wouldn't want to do that.
No, yeah, that's kind of part of the reason why guys like to play so is to kind of enjoy the cities of where they're in.
Absolutely.
And so when that's like restricted, it kind of I don't know, just maybe like raises tension or something like that. But a couple of guys got in trouble last year for going out. I think they went and grabbed lunch, and then I don't know. It was kind of like that's the thing too. It's just like guys were getting in trouble for it. It's just like, what do you expect us to do? Like you can't lock us away forever, right? Like it's just like I don't know.
Yeah.
I understand there's proper precautions that got to be made, and obviously if you have COVID, you shouldn't be going out, which is kind of common sense at this point. But it was kind of handled. I mean, I think it was handled actually as good as it could have been to at least have a year with 5 teams, and then I think it was a successful season where there's able to, have people go into the rinks and actually watch games. But it was kind of just a crazy year. Like even going to a new town, I couldn't really go out and get to experience it, right? Which is kind of because Knoxville's a beautiful city.
Yeah, for sure. It's just a bummer. So, but let's talk about
at least the beach. At least I was able to go to the beach in
Pennsylvania. Yeah, that's good. They didn't have that on the no-fly zone
there. Thank God. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a joke I have going with somebody else. Is I think that's why the finals ended up there is because the refs wanted to go to the beach too. But no, I'm definitely not bashing the refs. That's for all the fans out there to do. They do a good enough job.
I try to lay off the refs. I try to lay off the refs as much as possible. It's kind of hard sometimes, but I mean they're feeling it this year.
Oh yeah. I mean, the way I look at it is, I mean, there's a ref shortage in this, and it's because of the way people act towards him, and it's a tough job.
I know, and that's the thing. It's just like these poor, like after a game, you're just like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said this, shouldn't have said that. Usually that goes through your mind after every game, but it still happens every game, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just like, when am I going to learn, or when are people going to learn? But maybe there should be 2 refs. I don't know, like 2 guys were in the bands. That way, there's no excuses if you don't see something, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's just one of those things that it doesn't really matter. I don't think. I think you could have 3 refs out there and everybody's still fine.
There's so many problems. Yeah, you're right. That's a good
point. But either way, I'm definitely not one that bashes the refs, but I always like it whenever I see interactions with players and refs, because I think that interaction, I think, to me is more acceptable when it's just, a little chirping back and forth.
Yeah.
And like a fan that, it's funny to see some of these fans sit in the stands that have probably never played the game in their life. And they're sitting here acting like they could do better, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe strap some skates on and go out there and be a ref, right?
Yeah, those are the best people in the world right there.
Yeah, so it's always fun, but now I just lost like 400 listeners because they're like, oh, now he hates the fans.
Yeah, you can't please everybody, that's for sure.
That's right. So let's talk about this year, man, with you guys. I mean, it has been one hell of a year in Roanoke. I mean, you've been up, you've been down. I mean, you guys went on a 9-game losing streak. Here I was thinking that you were going to end up missing the playoffs. Then something clicked in Macon. But kind of start me back earlier in the season. How did you guys it took a while to get that first win. And then things started to click. Kind of walk me through the beginning of the season for you guys.
Yeah, so we had our first 2 games were in 14 days. So we played Fayetteville on a Friday, and then didn't play them again until the following Friday. And then we've had like 2-2s for like a couple weekends. So we didn't really, I don't know, it was tough to get our feet wet early on in the year as far as getting those reps in during the game. So we played Friday, we lost, and so that whole week we're kind of like drilling down what we could have done better, and then we lose again on the Friday. And so it was kind of like we couldn't really play like back-to-back games where we could respond right away. So that's always nice having back-to-back games, right? Because if you lose, you can always come back and redeem yourself the next night. And so but we were playing good, man. I think it was 0-2-4 our first 6 games. And so we were right there with teams. We played Huntsville, we lost to them in a shootout both games. And so it was just a combination of just mental breakdowns, like because we were winning, we were in the lead for a few games, they would come back tight, and then they'd win in a shootout or overtime. And so just being able to protect leads and play a full 60 minutes was something that we weren't really doing that well, obviously. But it's tough when you're playing these good teams and you're playing good and you're not getting the results. It's kind of easy to kind of get on your own page or try to do something where it's affecting the team essentially by, trying being selfish on the ice kind of thing. So I think once we got our first win, was it against Vermillion? Yeah. Once we got our first win, it was kind of like the weight off the shoulders. So we swept them. And then we, from Thanksgiving on, we were like 16-5 in 2 or 3.
Yeah,
And
you guys
so,
were rolling along.
yeah, we were rolling from that point. And so with that, we were just playing. We were basically playing how we were playing those first maybe 4 or 5 games, but we're seeing results. So
Yeah, yeah. I remember back you guys were in Birmingham early in the season, and Birmingham was just blowing the doors off of you guys, and then all of a sudden you guys are back in it, and the game goes to a shootout.
that
And
game
I
was
think at
crazy.
one point you guys were down by like 4 goals.
Yeah, I think we were down by 3. It was one of the most back and forth games I've ever been a part of, as far as like we were down big, came back and tied it. You guys scored 2 quickly. We scored 2. Then you guys scored 1. We scored 1. It was, I think we lost in a shootout that game. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that was I think in the shootout. But
and so
it was exciting, man.
That was a great game. Yeah, we scored with 2 or 3 seconds left. And so we had the team. It was just a lot of learning curves. You know what I mean? Just getting players acclimated to like the professional hockey style of play.
Yeah,
was huge. But once we got hot, man, we were buzzing for a while.
Yeah, and then what changed? Was it call ups? Was it something? I mean, because that 9-game losing streak was very uncharacteristic of the team that we'd all seen before that.
That
was it?
Yeah, that was. We were on the road pretty much that whole month, but guys were sick. We had quite a few call ups happening, but kind of things that like every team goes through, right? It's not like we were the only team that was dealing with call ups and all that, but had a more inexperienced team, I guess I would say. It was just one of those things where we just couldn't put together a winning game. And it was once you have 1 or 2 and then you're on the road for like the next 3 weeks and you're playing on the road, it was a tough hole to climb out of, but we eventually were able to get it done.
Yeah, how sick of Fayetteville are you and the rest of the team?
Man,
I mean,
that's crazy.
That's a lot of hockey games.
Yeah, 16 times I think it was what it is. So we played them this weekend.
Yeah.
We played them. I think we played them like 8 out of 10 games. Like,
it was crazy.
Yeah, and it's a 4-hour drive, so you're going there the day of, and day of trips are usually pretty. You're pretty not exhausted, but you're napping on the bus, right? And so it's kind of like you get there, you're already kind of groggy, and then you got to play them again. It's just like holy shoot! You're getting to know these guys too well, Yeah. But they're a good team though. We've been back and forth with them. Pretty good competition with them. I think they won the first 4, and then we won the next like 5 or 6. And now they've won the last however many it's been, but they're good though. I like they're a good team.
Yeah, it's a matchup that I got sick of seeing, but when you look at a matchup like that, it's 2 teams that know each other so well that it's going to be good hockey.
I know. It's just like at a certain point, you're just like, how are we playing these guys again? Like it kind of like you would think you would grow animosity playing the same guys so much, but when you see them like all the time, it's just like, oh, you again. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not like where you see them every once in a while, so you can kind of play a certain way. But I mean, we didn't even get to play Quad City once this year. Yeah,
that's crazy. Hopefully enough teams are making money. I think this is a money thing this year, and hopefully enough teams
that makes sense. Yeah,
making money and travel can kind of expand next year. And
I really hope so. Yeah.
Get a little more out there. I don't know. I mean, but it's definitely been interesting the way the schedule is. I mean, Peoria has played Vermillion County like 100 times, and
so they're kind of like our faithful, right?
So
so they're getting point night against Vermillion.
Yeah, it's something else up there. So, but and then when you guys went to moving back to what's going on now after that, to get out of that slump you guys were in, you guys went into Macon. I don't remember. Did Macon come to you, or did you guys play in Macon?
Macon came to us. Yeah.
So you played them and you got them, and that turned things around. And then all of a sudden, since then, you've just been rolling. You guys show up in Huntsville, and I don't think anybody had you guys winning that game either. I don't think anybody had you in those games because of the way Huntsville's been, and you guys handled business. And
So it even happened before our 2 wins against Macon. We were playing pretty good. We had a 10 a.m. game in Fayetteville. I think we lost 3-0 that game, but we outshot them like 50-26 or 50-30, something like that. So we've been out shooting our opponents for the most part and playing pretty good hockey, just not seeing the puck go our way, which is frustrating. But I mean, after that weekend we went to Pensacola and played them. They swept us, I'm pretty sure. And I mean, again, I think we were in both those games too. So like when you're playing well and not seeing results, that's probably the most frustrating part about turning a losing streak around. And then we played Macon again. Like they're obviously a good team too, but I felt like it was just kind of the timing was we're just like enough's enough. We're playing Macon at home.
Yeah.
First time we played at home in like probably 5 weeks or so, 4 to 5 weeks. And so we just knew that we had to win those games. And ever since then, it's been, we're on a roll. And then, once we get a couple wins under our belt, it's kind of just like sit back and watch us, take care of business. But Huntsville, that was a good weekend too. I think we match up pretty well against them. And then, it's been great though.
So that, like you said, you guys really have never been out of games. I mean, even in a 3-0 loss, it seems like you guys are you're always in it, and it's just the bounces aren't going your way or something like that. So,
right.
So in the locker room after the game or the next day at practice, I mean, what do you fix whenever it looks like everything essentially looks like it's going right? I mean, do you start working like on magic tricks around the net, and trying to find tricky ways to get the puck in? I don't know. I mean, what do you do in that scenario?
Basically, what Brems loves to do videos, so we always break down. He always says it's never as bad as what it looks like in person until you like look at video, obviously, or never as good, I would say. And so he loves breaking down video and kind of like picking apart just different things on what happens during goals, or like kind of like over like the last 8 to 10 games where the majority of our goals against have been. And so try to like focus on those areas in practice as far as doing game related drills is what he likes to do. So, but it's got to be exhausting for him because he's just like, we're doing all the right things for the most part, besides a couple relapses, like whether it's, maybe turning the puck over on the blue line too many times, they come down and finally score. Maybe it's, I wouldn't say goaltending, but maybe it could be like, letting a couple squeakers in and kind of ruining our momentum.
Yeah.
Just kind of like it's kind of been back and forth as far as what has been going on wrong. But I mean, as far as like him addressing it, we just do a bunch of video and try to nail down what the problem could be. Just try to fix it that week.
I got you. So
much video. Brems loves video.
That's great. It's kind of like PowerPoint for people that work in offices. Eventually you just sick of looking at it and you just want to take a nap.
Especially at this point in the season, it's just like, oh man. But no, it's you'll learn the most watching yourself play. So it's kind of like something you have to do, I feel like.
No, you're absolutely right. So I'll quit beating a dead horse there. I feel like I keep asking similar questions. So let's talk about, what do you do in the off season? I know you mentioned you work with a goaltender coach and stuff like that. So what do you do when you're not playing the game? Are you still in the game?
Yeah. So I was doing that. It's called Canadian Professional Goalie Schools, and so we would just travel around like the Midwest to like a new town each week, and we'd just show up there with all our stuff and run a goalie camp that week. And so we do that. We did it in Fargo, Bismarck, North Dakota, actually did a couple of camps in Winnipeg, Brandon, kind of like all around that area. And so I did that for like, we do that for a few months out of the summer, and then there's a camp up in New Hampshire called Elite Hockey. I would do that, and so pretty much just like every time hockey was done during the season, I would go home, just kind of like hang out, kind of like relax for like a month and a half or so, and then go do hockey camps, and then I just try and get ready for the next season. But it was pretty exhausting doing that and having to travel around every week, driving from Fargo to like Winnipeg, Manitoba. You're just like, holy shoot, like you travel all during the season, you know what I mean? And then doing the off season too, it's just like, man, I feel like I'm just never not traveling. But it's good though. You visit different places, and it's pretty good for the most part. But as far as now, I obviously reside in Roanoke, so I actually I work for an analytical company right now. In the summers, like I do it during the year as well. And so I do that part time whenever I can, whenever I'm not at the rink. Kind of just earn a little extra cash while I can. And so so right now I'm doing that, and then we'll see what happens after this year. So we'll see what I'll be doing.
Yeah, now you got to keep playing, and you can't stop now.
It's just like, I guess I'm having the best year of my career points wise, and
you're definitely
even like before this year started, I was just like, I'm not even going to worry about getting points, or I'm not going to let that be like something that I really focus my attention on. And then it turns out I'm having, I guess you would say, the best year statistically.
Yeah, your numbers. I was looking when you said that because I should have known that, but I just knew your numbers were good this year. But yeah, you are 1920 was the year that got shut down. It looks like you might have been on track to do what you did this year, but you get a full season here, so that's a lot better.
Yeah, no, so that's it's just crazy how that works when you just don't even worry about it. Kind of the points just come. But we have some good players in our team that make it easy getting those second assists, you know.
Yeah, that's right. But hey, a second assist still counts on the stat sheet. That's right. So, exactly. And when you got guys like Ford and Mac Jansen and up there, I mean,
Jeff Jones, CJ Stubbs, all those guys, those guys are like pure goal scorers, and so it's just like anytime you're on the ice with them, anything's possible as far as you get the point.
Just get it on one of their sticks, and they'll do the rest of the work. So you can be back behind your own net.
Come pick it up and then just take it up.
That's right.
I'll get my point.
That's right. I get my second assist.
Yeah, but this is probably the deepest team I've played on as far as like talent up front. Even our back end right now, like our team's looking pretty good before playoffs. So we kind of I like how we're getting hot. You never want to go on a 9-game losing streak, but since we're able to crawl out of that right now, I think we're getting hot at the right time. So
yeah, definitely. You're playing the right way heading into this last weekend and into the playoffs. So it's just a matter of who you're going to face. The top 3 is still not even decided yet. So I don't know.
I think it's going to be it's either, I think Knoxville's in first right now.
They're in first now, and then Peoria, and then Huntsville's in third. But all 3 of those teams can be in any of those 3 spots.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
It's crazy.
I know I'm always kind of planning having a trip come down, but I'm just it's the most impossible thing making plans, especially in playoffs. You just never know. I think if we play Knoxville, we're going to be going there on the Wednesday, I think. Since they're so close, I think that's what's going to happen. But either way,
travel wise, that's the best one. Peoria is probably the furthest away from you, wouldn't or Quad City might be. They're a little further away than that.
No,
but
I would say Peoria. We played them I think it was 18-19 year. Yeah, we swept them that year, and that was great.
Yeah, that was one where nobody really expected it, and all the Peoria haters really loved Roanoke that year. So that was a good year.
Well, that was the year they got to choose who they wanted to play with. Yeah, and so
how much better? I should have asked you that earlier. How much better is that to sweep the team that picked to play you because they thought they had their best chance at beating you?
And we finished 5th too, so we were like the first team that couldn't pick. So we were like the best of the worst teams that got picked, right? So they could have picked 4 other teams behind us, or I guess 3, right? Because we'd be the 5th one,
yeah.
And so the fact that they still picked us, it was kind of one of those things where it was just man, that was probably one of the highlights of my career as far as achievements, I would say. But,
yeah, definitely. I mean, it was. I mean, Peoria was. They were supposed to win it all that year, and they didn't even get out of the first round. So that's
oopsie.
Yeah. But
and then your Bulls took us over that series.
Yeah. That was the year they were playing really well too.
They were good. Yeah, I feel like the Bulls are always good though. Last year they weren't great. But they're still, I don't know. I feel like Birmingham's always in games. I feel like. Yeah,
it's the way that they've played this season is similar to the way that you guys have played, except for they haven't gotten the results, as many times as you guys have. It's interesting, and they're really turning it up here at the end of the season, but which is cool to see. I mean, it'll be interesting how many of these guys they can keep on the roster for next year, and maybe they'll take a run for it then. But
yeah, right, you guys playing Birmingham, I always just oh man, especially going to Birmingham, it's always tough because just that, I don't know if it's that rink or what it is, but you guys always seem to play super good at home.
And it's loud.
Nice.
It's so loud. It's small enough.
Yeah. The away room's freezing all the time too, so that's always fun.
Yeah. That whole place is freezing, man. That's not just the away room. I don't know. I haven't been in their locker room, but they might have heaters in there that are cooking. But that whole place is cold unless it's a packed house.
Yeah, unless it's packed, it's not too bad. But when we're on the road there in that room, you're just freezing the whole time.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah,
so, But I think that's it, man. I think I've almost taken up an hour of your time, so I think that's all the more of your time that I need to steal away from you. And I'm sure you got things that you need to do, and I wish you the best of the luck the rest of the season, and as well as the Rail Yard Dawgs. I hope to see you guys moving forward, doing great things. Like I said, you're one of the more fun teams to watch because it's always a competitive hockey game whenever Roanoke's involved. So, like I said, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Cool, man. Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate what you're doing. It sounds like you're doing well as far as the podcast go, and I got to start listening to some more. Are you on Apple Music or on Apple?
Yeah,
Podcasts?
it's on Apple. It's on all the podcast places and YouTube. That's why I do video, and everybody's got to stare at my face now. So it's on there too. But yeah, it's on there. Yeah, you can check it out. You can check out Mac Jansen's, and you can tell them that you guys can decide who did a better podcast. So
100%, yeah. And then maybe we'll do a vote. You'll feel past hockey. We'll do a vote.
We'll get a vote. Yeah, right now, actually, in the comment section, if you're watching it on YouTube, I want you guys to vote on the Mac Jansen one and the Armstrong one. Tell me who did better, and we'll get the results back to them. So.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you having me on. It's been fun.
All right, great interview. I'm glad I was able to bring him on. I hope everybody enjoys that as much as I do. It's always great to have the older veterans come on and kind of talk about their times, and I got to thank you, Mitch, for putting me in contact with him. So without your help, it wouldn't have been possible. So, and you were also the reason I was able to get Mac Jansen on earlier this season. So thanks for that as well. But
anytime.
So let's keep moving along. We got a few more teams we need to touch on. We got what do we got? Peoria and Quad City. They're like they play each other all the time, kind of like you guys in Fayetteville. And when they're not playing each other, they're playing Vermillion County. So Peoria, they were coming off of a 10-3 beatdown of Vermillion County, and Quad City was coming off of a 3-0 victory over Vermillion County. So both teams came off the other team they play, and they played each other, and Quad City got this one. Peoria's, I don't know what's going on in Peoria. I'm ignoring the Vermillion County game. It seems like they're always going to play up to that. Granted, they did lose to Vermillion County twice this year, but other than that, Peoria, ever since they kind of had that little break, they don't seem like they're the same team. You know, they went and played Huntsville, Knoxville, and everybody, and they didn't win. And so, but I'm not saying, I mean, they still got a shot at being number one. So, but let's talk about that game real quick, or I will for a minute. So Quad City went down early, and you know Peoria is going to be able to score. I mean, for God's sakes, they just scored 10 goals. But so it wasn't going to be long. So then I'm losing my mind. So, Casey Kolzicki, the new guy in town. He's playing with his third team this year. He tied things back up in the third later on. And then I'm not even going to attempt to say the man's name that scored the game winner. You might be able to help me out with it. Duperall? I don't know.
I'm not quite sure yet. I haven't nailed down that pronunciation for them.
Yeah, I should probably listen to the broadcast before I start doing this and just go to like right there and hear the broadcast say it. But I didn't because I'm bad at this sometimes. But so anyways, Quad City, these two teams always play each other hard. I mean, Peoria's got the best of them this year, but you never count Quad City out. And Quad City right now, they're the only other team in the playoff position that can't move up or down. They're locked into that fifth spot. They're sitting at about 500 in their last 10 games as well. So they're kind of up and down here and there, but I feel like this team's primed and ready to make a decent playoff run here. Let's lead off with that. Let's talk about Quad City. What do you think's going on with them? How do you feel about their chances moving forward?
Yeah, Quad City, they've been a tough team for me to get a read on this year just because we didn't get them here. We didn't make the trip out to Taxslayer either to play them. And so I'm a little veiled in kind of how much I know about them. I've watched them play a few different games and asked around a couple of the other broadcasters in the league just kind of for some feedback. Now, some Roanoke fans that are listening to this that were, here for more Dogs games than I was back when I was still in college and Brian Gardner was in my role, you're pretty familiar with a couple of their major contributors, Marcus Ortiz and Joe Sova. They've had a lot of success this season with Quad City. But, I think everyone has kind of looked at Shane Bennett as kind of the go-to guy for them all season. He's had the big goals. He can kind of do that little bit of everything as far as he can be your playmaker and your talisman. And then when you need, those big clutch scores to come up, he's more than capable of kind of taking that upon himself as well. And the thing with them is they've been remarkably consistent throughout the year. I feel like I haven't really seen them go on like one big losing streak or one big winning streak, where even a team like Fayetteville, who they're almost definitely going to match up with, I think, in the first round, Fayetteville kind of had a turn in December into January where they were below Roanoke when Roanoke was on their hot run. They fell as far down as, I think, 6th place in the SPHL, and now Fayetteville mathematically is still not out of the 2nd seed somehow for the President's Cup. So a lot of these teams have kind of had those ebbs and flows, those big kind of, inconsistencies throughout a very long slate of games, 56 game schedule. But Quad City just kind of feels like they've been pretty solid all throughout the year. And they've got a few pieces back now for their playoff stretch, where I think the only thing that might complicate things is that out of all the first round matchups in the President's Cup, all of them are pretty close travel except for Fayetteville and Quad City. And whoever can win the bus rides, whoever can win the hotel, seriously, whoever can take care of themselves off the ice the best in that series, whether it goes 2 or 3 games, might have just as much of an impact as how they actually match up once the lights are on and the skates are all tied up and everyone's out there on the ice. So I'm interested to get to see them more in the President's Cup. I'm definitely going to try and keep a closer eye on that series with Fayetteville. And, we'll have to wait and see kind of what they're able to do against either the Marksmen or the Havoc. Right now projected it would be Fayetteville.
Yeah. All signs are pointing that way, but I'm never counting anything out. It'd be something else if Fayetteville jumped to number 2 on the last weekend. But no, another thing is with them is, they've got a solid goaltender in Birkin, and Birkin spent probably 50%, if not more, of the season, up in the ECHL. And so this kind of had a goaltender carousel. They had Peter DeSalvo to start the season, and then they parted ways with him. I think that may be some of the problem, but that they've had at times. But at the same time, like at Quad City, it's another one of those teams. All of these teams are just they're so closely knit in here. It's tough to really pick a strong favorite whenever you get into these, 4 or 5 matchups, in my opinion. But so Peoria, let's talk about them. So they've been a wagon, and then they weren't all of a sudden, and they showed that they were defeatable when they couldn't beat Knoxville or Huntsville when they came down here. They've rebounded a little bit, and they beat up on Vermillion County, but they're adding people. They keep adding goal scorers to their team. I don't know if this team do they got 4 first lines? That's what I want to know. I mean, they don't even, Cody Dion's been out with injury. And so I don't know, maybe Kolzicki's playing on the 4th line. I think Hageman got an assist, and Hageman's not a 4th line guy. So that he may have been playing first line minutes, but I mean, you're getting scoring everywhere, and Godbout's probably going to win the Rookie of the Year. Yeah. And I mean, Peoria is going to score. I mean, that's kind of the way that I look at it. But I don't know. At the same time, they struggled against Knoxville, and they struggled against Huntsville. What's your take on the Rivermen right now heading in? Are they going to have another one of their postseason collapses, do you feel, or how do you see this going for them?
Yeah, I would probably have Peoria right there with Knoxville as the 2 teams that going in, I'd probably give maybe the most respect or the most expectations to. And you kind of mentioned, the history of that team. They've struggled to get it done. They've had dominant regular seasons before, and, maybe not been able to quite catch it at the right time come April. And that's a huge part of this equation is just, playing the right style at the right time. And we got a good preview of what it could look like potentially in the President's Cup playoffs that weekend, where, as you mentioned, they had Knoxville and Huntsville and really kind of struggled to play their style of game, which is kind of it's confusing to me because Roanoke and Peoria both, they're going to dump the puck in and really try to trap you in on the forecheck, get physical, get you against the boards, and then hopefully turn you over and, create those quick shots by, a lot of really talented shooters that they have on their team. Peoria, as far as the scoring part of that, has obviously done a very good job of it this year. I give them a lot of respect right now, just with the pair of goaltenders that they have. Obviously Levine, he's been, kind of their workhorse throughout the year. I'm seeing he's got over 40 games played, and we're not even to the end yet. So that's pretty darn impressive for him to do. And then, of course, they got Jack Berry back from the ECHL. So that's another good tandem that they have in net. I think that the real key for Peoria, and I alluded to it a little bit when I talked about maybe how they'd match up with Roanoke, is they really need to come out and kind of set the tone in that first, 5 minutes before the first timeout or the first half of the first period, because they are not a team, I think, that is good at chasing the game. Roanoke, the time that they did beat them in the 5 matchups that they had this year, the one that they won was back in January, and Roanoke scored 3 first-period goals. They were up 3-0 at the end of the first intermission, and I just don't think that kind of, spread it out. We got to go end to end and really try to turn it into a shootout and start putting, pucks in the back of the net. I don't really think that's how they roll, even though they're a very good scoring team and a high scoring team. I think that what they want to do is they want to get that early lead and then start punishing you physically and maybe start, eating the puck up a little bit, eat some time off the clock, and then start frustrating you and start taking you mentally out of the game. And for the most part this year, they've had a lot of success. They do a really good job of that, but I think it's very dependent, maybe as dependent as just about any team among those top contenders in the standings, that I can think that, they just have to come out and hit you in the mouth those first 5 or 10 minutes for them to really kind of achieve what they'd like to execute.
Yeah, that's a great. I've never looked at it, but the more as you were saying that, I was looking back and thinking about it, and I'm like, that is kind of it. When they play from behind, they're not as well off. So yeah, that might be. You might have just given the secret out for the playoffs. So you're going to be getting some hate mail from Peoria now. But
take it easy on me here. It's easier said than done. They, I'll, just to kind of go back on that, they have some very talented players that have played there for a long time. I was really surprised when they got Girdler back and just kind of inserted him mid-season, after having as many productive seasons with the Rivermen earlier on in his career, and I don't think he had been back since before the COVID season. And, he's come in and, probably added some leadership in that locker room. Of course, I don't really have a direct thumb on it to be able to know that, but they have, him along with Alec Hageman, and then you have some younger studs like Alec Bear and Godbout, who, those two are probably in the front runner seat for both leading goal scorer for the season, and Bear might just be wrapping up the MVP here in a few weeks. So, yeah, when they play their game, it's going to be tough for anyone to knock them off. There might be a recipe, but it's an any given day, any given night type of atmosphere now. And Peoria, there might only be a couple of ways to beat them, where other teams, there might be a few more. But I do think it is a pretty big gap in the armor for the Rivermen if you can kind of play them out of the game earlier on and kind of make them chase.
Yeah, there might be a recipe, but to get all those ingredients mixed together perfectly, that's a whole nother ball game. And
exactly.
Peoria is going to be they're going to be a tough one this year in the playoffs, and it's just a matter of I feel like they're probably going to finish second, but they could finish first, third, fourth. I mean, it's just like I said, I'm not counting anything out yet, but I feel like the way that the standings look right now, I feel like that might be how they end next weekend, but. I've been known to be wrong. It happens. It happens occasionally. But we'll wrap it up with Huntsville and Fayetteville. So I was not expecting this. I just wasn't expecting it. I knew it was going to be a good series, but I was not expecting it. 6-2 victory for Fayetteville on Friday night, and then 4-2 victory on Saturday night, and they weren't shooting a lot. That was one of my notes I took out, is they 22 shots on goal, and then 25 shots on goal the other night. Huntsville, meanwhile, 41 shots on goal, 46 shots on goal. I mean, they are just peppering the goaltenders, and Pawlowski just played great, and I don't know. I mean, Fayetteville, they impressed me. I feel like Fayetteville, and very first to start the season out, the beginning of the season, I made my bold prediction, sure to go wrong. And I said Fayetteville and Birmingham would play in the President's Cup finals. Well, the Birmingham thing might be a little bit of the homer in me. But Fayetteville, I mean, they might have my back. They might have my back here. So I don't know. But Huntsville, I'm not counting Huntsville out. You know, they've lost 4 games in a row. They haven't lost that many games in a row all season long. They were breaking all kinds of records to start the year off. They seem like they've kind of evened out, but you can't count. That's another team with championship pedigree, and they have players on their team right now that were Huntsville Havoc in those back-to-back championships that seem like 100 years ago now, with the COVID year breaking everything up and nothing going. But yeah, they fell to 3rd in the standings. They could potentially get 4th. They can get 1st if they're going to have to win. What's the tie? So they got the tiebreaker. But Knoxville's going to have to lose both of their games, and Huntsville's going to have to win both of theirs, and they'll tie them in points. And also Peoria is going to have to, lose a game. I think 1 game, but it's not out of the question. But I kind of feel like Huntsville's going to be 3rd. Tell me about Huntsville. You've got experience with them. You guys came down to town and beat them down a little bit.
Yeah, so to start with the Havoc, and then I guess we'll leave the rivals to North Carolina for last. I've seen them about as much as our own team this year. But no, Huntsville, I mean, they're probably the most skilled team, at least up front, throughout the entire SPHL. Odd man rushes, they don't miss many of them when they get those breakaway chances. And they can also set up shop in the offensive zone and kind of try to pick you apart and put you in places where you aren't comfortable. And then, they have the sharp shooters and the savvy veterans like a Jacob Barber or a Cy Nukovic that are able to pot those pucks and put them in the back of the net. I think right now, and what they missed in some of those games with Roanoke back in January, after Roanoke beat them in that wild New Year's Eve game that Nolan Kaiser got a 9-game suspension for, and then he was just on the injured reserve. I think he might be their most important player, only because they don't have a lot of physical players on that team. They don't really have a lot of players that, can, I wouldn't say strike fear, but can kind of keep everyone else on the ice on their toes. And that doesn't necessarily have to be from a dropping the gloves perspective, but just as an imposing defenseman, kind of cleaning up shop from the back, and also still really talented when taking the puck forward and kind of being a playmaker from the blue line for the Havoc. I think that missing him is why Roanoke was kind of able to push them around the way that they were in both of those games. And it was really, 5 out of 6 periods, pretty well ran and controlled by the Rail Yard Dawgs a couple weekends back. And I think when they have Kaiser back there, it gives them at least one player that in a series against Roanoke or a series against Peoria can maybe kind of keep some of those bigger, more physical players that those two teams in particular have, and kind of keep them at bay and allow Huntsville to maybe play that real spread out game that they like to play, where they just kind of like to, cut you open like open heart surgery. Yeah. And, Hunter Vorba has been a solid goaltender for them as well. He didn't have his best weekend against Roanoke. And I think, the difference between, having him and having Milosic, I think that's going to be maybe pretty big down the stretch, because it doesn't look like Max is coming back. It looks like it's going to be Hunter with Zane Steves backing him up heading down the stretch in the postseason. And so we'll see what he's able to do in net. The numbers for him are great this year. I don't know that he's the best goaltender in the SPHL, as some of those numbers might suggest. But if he can step up, and if Nolan Kaiser is 100% ready to go, Huntsville can always turn up the wick and be, a major contender in these next few weeks.
Yeah, they definitely know how to get it done. They got players there that have done it before, and yeah, I'm not counting them out. I'm just a little shocked at the way things have kind of coming apart here at the end of the season. But like I said, it'll be a big test against them. And Birmingham always plays. I think I had Nukovic. Yeah, it was him that I had on here, and I asked him about the rivalry between the Bulls and Huntsville, and I said, "Do you guys just play harder?" And he said, "I don't know if it's us playing harder." He says, "I think the Bulls play us harder, and so we have to elevate our game." And either way, even if he doesn't want to admit that it's a rivalry, no, I'm not saying that, but it's gonna be a test. So those two teams always play each other well, and Huntsville is playing for playoff position. I don't know what position they want. Maybe they're happy where they're at, and maybe they won't play real hard, but I doubt that. You can't tell you can't tell guys that compete this hard every day to not play hard. But yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. I'm interested to see how it goes, and Huntsville is another team. I don't know. I keep repeating myself because I feel every team has a shot at it. So, but anyway, we'll move on. Let's move on to Fayetteville. Your favorite team, the other team that you call games for. We can just say it because you probably know their players as well as the Rail Yard Dawgs players. So, so Fayetteville's they're playing really well here, coming down the stretch. They potentially could be second. They're probably going to be fourth, but they've been playing well. And they're a team, in my opinion, that plays a lot more of a physical style of a game, and they can wear you out. And that's why they don't have to have so many shots on goal. I mean, they have the skill players that can do it, but I feel like they're a team that's going to wear you out. Is that how? I mean, you've seen them more than me this year. How far off am I there?
One word for Fayetteville: sneaky. They're a team that is just very sneaky good. A lot of the similar qualities that Knoxville has, as far as they're capable of raking off a couple of goals late. Roanoke, especially at the beginning of the year, was on the wrong end of a few of those games that it looked like were going well for Roanoke, and then all of a sudden Fayetteville turns a 1-goal deficit to a 2-goal lead. That sort of thing. But yeah, they're not like Huntsville offensively in that they're just going to carve you open on a 30-second offensive zone possession or 45-second shift where it's just working around the horn and they open up the passing lanes and it just turns into this beautiful flower. That's not Fayetteville. Fayetteville, they do not care if you're going to take 10 shots within 1 minute, because they know if that puck bounces out to the blue line and they catch it on, a Taylor Best or a Tommy Biesinger or one of their really speedy, really skilled players, best counterattacking team in the SPHL. I've said it all season long. Those odd man rush and breakaway chances. Huntsville, Knoxville, and Fayetteville are all pretty good at them, but that is just where Fayetteville, that's where they make their money, so to speak, in these contests throughout the season. And they can play that type of game because I think without a doubt that they've got the best tandem of goaltenders. We've talked about a few good ones throughout our time together, but Brett Moran was really the player that changed the season for Fayetteville. And I give Corey Melkert credit because I think he took a little too long to make the changes when they were struggling in December and January, and they were just a really stale side. They would play Roanoke and just look flat. And I was like, not even recognizing the team that, had beaten Roanoke a couple times 2 months prior. And it was a lot of the same players. And, he introduced some new players into the fold. We mentioned B. Senior. Brett Moran, he's been an outstanding goaltender. And before he was called up, Jason Pulaski arguably was up top as one of the best goaltenders in the league. You pair both of them together, and, you'll see those 45 save performances by Pulaski or the 50 credited saves by Moran against Roanoke in the school day game a few weeks ago that it felt like it was 75 or 100. I mean, Roanoke getting 50 shots and not scoring until their 50th of the game. It's pretty frustrating to play against because, you're getting good opportunities and you feel like you're getting the lion's share of possession and shots on net, and you get 3 or 4 good ones in a row and Morant's doing cartwheels in the crease, and all of a sudden the puck pops out and Taylor Best hits a give and go with whoever he's skating with and just pots the puck, and they haven't been in your zone in 5 minutes and they score on you. And that's like really that's how Fayetteville plays, and they're pretty darn good at it. Now, there have been a few times this year in my experience watching them against Roanoke, not against Brett Moran, who up to this coming weekend when we'll see them at Crown Coliseum for 2. We haven't had much success against him in the win column, but we were able to chase Jason Pulaski in a couple of those games throughout the season, and then a few of their other goaltenders that have since come and gone. And that's really the key is if Fayetteville's going to give you those extra opportunities and let you outshoot them by, 5, 10, 15 opportunities per game on a given night. You have to be mentally prepared for that. And you have to try and hit the ice, at your top level. And even when you get that lead and get up in the game, once the game speeds up or they have to chase the game, they're pretty darn good at chasing the game and scoring because they like to play at 100 miles per hour all the time. So they're another one of those teams. I don't think they're quite as good as Knoxville as far as they can just come back on you whenever. But you definitely have to wait till later on in the contest to really kind of feel like you've locked up a 2-goal lead or a 3-goal lead. The one thing I think to close out with them is, while I do agree that they play a bit of a physical game, as you were saying, it's a different type of physicality than a Roanoke or Peoria or a Quad City, because they let you set up shop, they let you get across the red line, and then they just kind of try to, I think, bait you into certain spots that can spring, that pass that leaks in behind, the opposition defenseman. They really try to set you up for those big Oliveri hip checks, or maybe just two really speedy guys kind of squeezing you off the puck, and then one pass is sent up to the blue line, and all of a sudden there's a one-on-one. It's not quite the same gritty grind type of physicality that some of those other teams play with, but they do it really well, and they've been doing it well these last few weeks. We'll see if Roanoke, who has as much practice as anybody does against that style throughout this season, I know Roanoke will be prepared. We'll see if they're able to crack it, as they've done sometimes throughout the course of the campaign.
Yeah, I'm taking the safe road. I'm going to say it's going to be a weekend split between Roanoke and Fayetteville, because that's the safest bet you can make, right? But I look forward to it. It's been a while, hasn't it? When was the last time that the two teams played? It seems like it's been a little while.
Well, it's been a while since they came to Roanoke. Their last trip here was, I believe, February 4th. And then all the rest of the games, we had 17 total against them this year, so 16 and 17 this weekend. We're going to be at Crown Coliseum. So this is there were 5 games left at Crown. The last time they came, we've played 3 there. And, a bit of a mixed bag of performances by the Rail Yard Dawgs, but stayed in most of those games. There was one game down there in mid-February where Fayetteville kind of had their way. And then Roanoke bounced back and played a great game the very next night when they played them, and Fayetteville was able to win. And then, we talked a little bit about that 50-shot game when it took us until the 50th shot to see a Roanoke goal hit the back of the net. So I think that the Dogs, they don't want to end the season on a losing streak to Fayetteville. Start of the year, Fayetteville was kind of controlling the series. Then Roanoke got a big run of success, and then Fayetteville's come back, and I think they've clinched the season series already. Roanoke's 6-8-1 going into these last couple of games. Fayetteville 9-5-1 in those games. So even though Roanoke can't necessarily win the season series, they've gotten very, very familiar with them, and I think they want to keep their momentum that they've gained themselves, in addition to Fayetteville, kind of heading in the right direction for the President's Cup. I don't think a split's a bad possibility to consider, but I'd love to see the Rail Yard Dawgs go out there and get 4 points out of 4, as you could imagine I would.
Yeah, definitely. Of course you would. So for me, from an outsider looking in, I don't even really have as much of a bias as everybody really would lead to believe about the Bulls. I just work very closely with them, but I did have to pick them to go to the President's Cup finals, with my prediction sure to go wrong, but no, I think it's going to be fun. I'm going to try to tune into it. I always try to catch them all. I gotta cover Huntsville, Birmingham, but sometimes there's games when I'm looking through the game notes. Sometimes on Sunday I'll go back and rewatch some of these games, kind of like I did with the Knoxville Roanoke series this past weekend, because I was like, this. You just look at the penalties on there, and you're like, yeah, I should probably go back and at least try to catch some highlights of this one. So. But no, it's great. And hey, man, I really appreciate you coming on, Mitch. We'll have to catch up again and do this a little bit down into the playoff run, or hell, maybe even in the off season. We can talk a little bit of what ifs and what wills and all that stuff. But like I said, I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to come back, and I appreciate you reaching out and having me on to talk some SPHL, getting ready for the President's Cup, and hopefully we can do it again soon. I'd love to.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there you have it, folks. Episode 25 in the books, and I will catch you all next time.
You've been listening to the Inside the SPHL podcast. Got a topic you'd like discussed? Follow James on Twitter at FPHBulls. For the latest news on the SPHL and the rest of minor league hockey, download the Field Pass Hockey app, now available in the Apple and Android app stores.